point, they say, well, it looks like this is here to stay, so we'd better adjust to it. Like for instance, and French will say, oh, it looks like I don't like it at all, so I hope it goes away. And you know, if I want it enough, it will go away. I saw that firsthand in my line of business, digital books. You know, when the Kindle arrived in the US, you know, there were some early adopters, and then some people said, oh, well, these people read, you know, books or the journal on their Kindle in the train in the morning, and they gave it a try too. And next thing you know, and the publishers said, ooh, it looks like a very, you know, important trend. Not that we like it, but we have to do something because it's here to stay. So they put their best employees, Harvard graduates, you know, to study McKinsey, to study that business. What can we do differently? How can we account for a bigger market share of that new business? And today, the digital, you know, book market in the US account for depending on the definitions and the new books, and between 20 and 40%, let's say. In France, totally different. When the Kindle arrived and ebooks arrived, mostly through the iPad, by the way, in France in the beginning, all publishers tried to resist the trend, including, and maybe especially, my publisher, Antoine Bello, who is the head of the publisher trade union. Okay, so he did everything he could to get some advantages, some tax breaks from the government, everything to, you know, repel digital books because, you know, French are very, French like their paper, they like their books. We're a country like no other. This is the cultural exception. Okay, now in France, digital books account for between 1 and 2% of the market, which is, you know, and French are proud of that. But if you think about it, which country do you think will, you know, file the new patents in that industry? Which country will conquer the new territories, the new markets in digital books? The US, of course. And that's what you gain from being at the vanguard sometimes of those, you know, trends that maybe you cannot control them, but you should at least try to benefit from them. And we don't do that very well in France, I think.
But I think, I mean, I have two things to say. I would add like another.
You have to say something positive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't like the French bashing. You're not doing very French bashing, that's not what I'm saying. But when you look at Uber, like this story about Uber as well, it's exactly the same. So we are reluctant to change, actually, I think in France, which is not the case in the US, and which is great. I love that. But I think like the difference is that the US is really like a short-term society, like civilization, when Europe is more like a long-term civilization. So you look at the street actually in New York, I mean actually they are damaged, and it would look like buildings are just like falling in the city. So it's really like we don't have the same way to see the future. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. In the US, you just destroy to rebuild, and to rebuild with new stuff. In France, you like to just keep what you had for a long time. But I think that's linked to our past and our history, and the fact that Europe has 5,000 years of history when the US is maybe younger. But so just like to, another thing about the difference between US and France is that the US society is really a specialized, I mean, it's made by specialized people. I mean, people have a specialization in the US. Like, this is the only country where you have someone at the restaurant who is just like giving you water, and another guy who will take your order. And it doesn't exist in France. I mean, actually in France, the guy, the waiter is coming and take your order, and he will give you water. So it's the same, like, and I noticed that in my company, to sell something to a large enterprise, we need 3 people in the US when we need 1 guy in France. You need a pre-sales, you need a sales guy, and you need another sales guy who will help the first sales guy. Because people are really specialized. you cannot ask someone, a sales guy, to have technical skills, for example. You will need someone who will have technical skills, someone who will have like sales skills, and someone who will speak about money, for example. In France, you can ask to the same guy to do the three things. And that's really different from, so it costs, for us, it costs 3 times as much as France to sell something in the US. So that's so that also the prices are higher in the US than in France, because we need like more people. So I think that's something.
So just, I mean, despite all of these differences though, you guys are here, and my observation is, you know, les Français sont partout in New York.
Yeah.
There's just scores and probably hundreds of young entrepreneurs here. I assumed at first it was for our advanced social welfare system, but it turns out, I mean, highly educated, highly motivated, really kind of excited to build something here. Really, a lot of them from the ground up, not just transplanting businesses. So what's either going on here that's making that happen, or what's going on in France that's causing that?
I think we won't have the same answer actually on that one.
That would be good.
No, but I think for me, France is the best country in the world to start a company, actually, and I know you will disagree with that, but I realized that I was in love of Paris when I left Paris and when I moved to the US. Really, I mean, actually that's just crazy, but the quality of living in Paris is amazing. The cost of living is amazing in Paris, actually. And like the people in Paris, our employees actually, they're so good, so loyal, so cheap. But really, I mean, actually, so, but the problem is, I don't think that people are leaving France because they're leaving France. I think they're leaving France because they want to come in the US. So it's not like they have to. They have to because they don't want to, they have to, because again, France is a 60 million people market. The US plus Canada is a 400 million people market. For us, it's 17 times bigger. The market is 17 times bigger in the US than in France. So it's just like what someone told me that, look at the US, like, but when you arrive here, an American guy will see you as a French guy will see someone from Botswana or from Romania coming to France. So you are a very, very, very small country and with a very small market. So if you really want to become a leader, to really have a large company, you need to just get outside France, actually.
Do you have a competing view?
I love Paris, maybe not as much as Jonathan, but a great deal too. I go there very often. No. I think there is a big trend at the moment of French people, and I guess lots of Europeans as well, leaving their country, coming to the US, traveling in general, to learn English, to hone their skills, to add a nice line on their resume to make themselves more employable. That's obvious to me. Like all the young people whom I know from 15 to 20, 25, they want to make a stop at some point in the US or in England or in Australia because they want to learn English. And their parents push them. I remember when I was 17 and I was considering my future, my parents were pushing me to go to one of the grandes écoles in France, the elitist, education system in France, either as an engineer or to a business school. And that's what I did, and that's what all my friends did, all my friends. Now it's very different. I have a daughter in Paris, she's 16 now. She's considering a future. She's applying to universities in the UK. Her friends are applying in the US. One of them is staying in France to become a doctor. One of them wants to be a lawyer, but wants to have a double diploma, US, UK, not even France. So I think things are changing. That's one. Second, I think it's not, Jonathan mentioned the tax system, and that's right. You pay a lot of taxes in the US as well. There is one big difference though, even though the young people don't pay attention to that, it's a wealth, what is called the wealth tax, ESF, where in France, when you have over, let's say, $1 million, you pay 1% of your assets every year.
Yeah, but you pay real tax here.
Believe me,
We've got tax experts. in
Okay,
that
okay.
room.
Believe me, when you're very wealthy, at the end of the year, and you must, sign a check of $500,000 or $1 million, just because you own stuff, not because you made stuff. You could actually have lost money that year. Signing this check is difficult. But it's not even that, I think, the problem, especially with young people. The problem is the mentality. What I said earlier about how we view success in France. Success is something that you have to apologize for. Really, I've had to do it. My employees, some of my employees would criticize me for starting the company and profiting from a distorted market situation. Sorry, and it's crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I left this country in 2002. And believe me, the situation has gotten much, much worse in the past 14 years. So you see that, our president, François Hollande, still speaks like that. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed.
And the problem is that failure is also, you need to apologize for success, but for failure as well.
Yes.
So, which is a big difference with the US. So
Yes.
what should you do actually? I think that's a big
Yes,
problem.
no, you're right. It's just as...
I actually had a couple other questions, but I bet this is engendering a lot of comment or questions from the audience, so maybe we'll just take it right out. Anybody want to pose a question to our esteemed panelists here before we start?
Usher say, told a couple of friends of mine that,
Sorry, can everybody
Can
hear
you
the
hear me?
question?
Now, yeah, you need to be close to
Is there a
this.
mic?
You need to be
No,
close to that.
there's a
actually.
mic.
There's a mic.
We
Yeah,
have two mics.
Yep.
yeah.
You need to turn it on.
Okay.
can you hear me better?
No.
That's how I feel in my classes.
That's mine.
Just make some microphone mistakes. Two friends, sons of a guy who ran a bank, went to Usher Say, did a few banking things, and then decided to do their own thing. They got a prize from Usher Say to do it. And Usher Say said, don't do it in France. Go do it in the US. Now, there might have been market reasons for that, but the real reason was they were really being told, this is not the place to start a company. So I'm quite interested in your saying, it really is a great place to start companies. I mean, you see other things like the smart card, things like that. There's a great invention in France, but is it really, do you really think France is a good place today to start?
Yeah, so, first, I think the reason why HEC told them that is that they need statistics, actually. They need to show that people are starting company outside France. So this is the reason why.
To avoid the wealth tax, probably.
Yeah, for lots of reasons, actually. But yes, I really mean that, actually. And for many reasons. The first one is the market is more competitive in the US than in France. So if you are smart, you have a good idea, you will have more chance to succeed in France than in the US at first, to raise the first seed round and everything. Second, you have what we call the BPI, actually, in France, which is the public bank, which is really present now, and you have lots of money that you can receive from subsidies, from incubators, from loans, and actually you don't have that in the US. Everybody thinks that in the US you have lots of incubators, lots of seed funds, but the reality is that you have, some incubators. They ask you for 6% of your company if you want to go there. So Y Combinator, Techstars, if you want to get into these incubators, you have to give them 6% of your company. So that's just, for me, to scam. That's a scam. And then you have business angels, but basically it's really hard to reach out to them, and because you have so many people who want to start the company. And in France, actually, you don't have that many startups. So if you're good, but you need to be good. And if you have the right team, the right people, it's easier to start really. I mean, actually, but you don't need to stay. You don't have to stay. You should just leave France at some point. It's a good country to start a company. It's not a good country to develop a company. So.
I agree with Jonathan on that. I didn't find it difficult to start my company 20 plus years ago, and the private equity firm I work with, they see plenty of great French companies every day. Some of them at some point go to the US or try to expand to another market, but you can't blame France for having only 60 million people. If at some point they feel there is a better opportunity elsewhere, they should seize it.
I think the problem of France is different, I mean, actually. So first, from a tax matters, I'm investing in companies as well, and that's better to invest from France than from the US because you have like lots of tax exemptions, and so I would have paid zero capital gain in France, and I paid like 35% of capital gain in the US. So just like to give you an example.
That's bad. That's bad tax.
That's really bad. So, but the other thing is that I think we have a problem with exit in France. When you look, I don't know if you know Dailymotion and what happened with Dailymotion in France, where the government just refused to Yahoo to do the acquisition of Dailymotion like a year ago. I think this is really bad for our ecosystem. And I think politics, they don't understand the startup ecosystem. They don't understand what we need. And every time people are asking us, like politics ask us, what do you need? We say just one thing, just step back from us. I mean, actually step back from the startup industry. Let us live, actually. And I think that, yeah, it's just moving and everything. But I think that we don't have big companies that can acquire a company like a startup in France. I mean, if you look at like all the large company in France, you wouldn't see any acquisition above $100 million. It's impossible. I mean, that's for that. I mean, so we have a problem of just exit.
Yeah. I saw a couple other hands there.
Hello, my name is Kai Henning. I'm not an entrepreneur nor an investor, but I'm a German diplomat here working at the consulate as Deputy Consul General, and I'm heading the economic department. And over the last years, I took care of quite a number of German startups. And I really, really enjoyed that talk a lot because basically every time when you said France, you could put in Germany. We have actually totally the same experience. It's now something that really clicked because I never knew that actually, that these experiences are not basically the experience of the German startups, but it's basically maybe the experience of European startups here. For instance, the point that Jonathan made with regard to about the mentality. Europe, maybe, or Germany, maybe like France and maybe like the rest of Europe, they're product driven, and here it's sales driven, and that's why you actually always focus on the sale, and the small and medium-sized enterprises where actually a lot of startups originate from. They focus on their product and they're trying to make it better and better and better. And maybe then they miss the point where you should start selling actually. And then a competitor comes with something almost as good but much cheaper. And also with regard to hiring personnel, and actually the experience that I made was that companies that come from Germany, and I think from France as well, they're not really ready for a professional pitch. They have great products, and actually I've seen companies who had really what the investors and what the business partners here needed and wanted, but in their 5 or even 10-minute pitch, they were not able to explain the product that they have, actually. They're telling them what the history of their company, and when the 10 minutes are over, the grandfather started the company making screws or something like that, you know? So, and with this is something that we in Europe, in Germany and France, we have to train our companies there to prepare them for what they find here. Then maybe some of the mistakes can be avoided. So I thought it was great actually to see how close we are, and that actually sheds a light on why Germany and France are cooperating so close in Europe actually, because we have the same mentality.
I can confirm actually, we are just like, we have an office in Germany actually, so we have a team there, and we have the same culture. I mean, I can tell you, this is so easy to work with German people when you are French. Actually, it's just like it's really different from like coming to the US. So,
if I could just make a point on that. So my company is a spin-off out of the Max Planck Institute. So we license technology from a German institution, government-funded, quasi-university, quasi-government. And let me tell you, when you're trying to close a venture capital financing in the US, and you need to get in touch with a German bureaucratic, government-funded set of folks in August, your deal doesn't get closed until September. So I do think there is some cultural differences there, because I sent out 6 emails on every email chain, and I got 6 auto responses saying, I'll be back in September.
That's the same in France.
Yeah, I know. We've got questions in the back of the room.
I wanted to know if you could comment on the changes in the proposed changes to the French employment law and some of the protests that it has provoked.
And I mean, for me, that's a shame, actually. I'm young, I mean, so I'm 32, and when I see like people from college just being in the streets and saying like, we have jeopardized, the government jeopardized our future, I just don't understand. And actually, that's the first time, I'm not socialist, I mean, actually, but that's the first time that we see a law that is going in the right way. And we have like these people who don't understand anything about this law. I can tell you, just go on the street and ask them, okay, why are you here? Why are you demonstrating? No one knows. They don't even understand. I mean, I read the text. I mean, this is right in our space. We have to know what's going on. This is perfect for our company. Just the fact to limit, actually, what we call the prud'homme, so meaning how do you say it in English?
Arbitration panel
for employees that you are terminating.
Yes.
That's just like amazing. I had this problem 3 times in the US. And I didn't terminate the people because I was scared about that. I mean, actually to pay them afterwards. I mean, like a lots of things, like the fact to be able to negotiate internally within the company with your representative. That's amazing. We need to do that. And so my problem,
Do you think these are good changes?
I think that's a perfect change. I think the first version of the law was better than that one. And I think in France we are not courageous because we are scared about, the problem is that we should have 1 mandate for the president. It should be 5 years, period. Because the problem is that now, why don't we just like change this law? Why don't we just vote this law? It's because François Hollande needs to be re-elected. And so that's it. So for me, as a young guy, French guy, I think that was a really, really good law. And I think we are just like, again and again, we are just like, we're just like stepping back as a government or as politics because we are scared about just making difficult decisions that could bring our country to the next level. So I don't know.
I'm so glad we don't have that political problem here.
No, but I don't know what to do.
I agree.
Yeah, you will have it like in
Yeah, we
3
have it.
months actually.
I agree 100% with Jonathan. This is typical of a French trend where someone comes with a bold new piece of legislation and it gets clobbered and they keep, because they want it to pass for political reasons, they will put amendments in it, and at the end of the day, it becomes harmful. I mean, that new piece of legislation that was supposed to solve a problem becomes a new problem, aggravates the problem,
Yeah.
really. I mean, it has happened many times before.
But I think the main problem we have in France, which is really different from here, is that we do not trust our politics. And actually, when you're in the US, you see a flag, an American flag, in every single house. In France, if you have a flag, you vote for the Front National. It means that you are racist. And we don't trust our country, we don't trust the head of our countries. So I mean, that's a big problem we have. So how can you just move forward and change actually the way we work, the way we live, if you don't trust the people who are making these laws? And I think that's the main problem. So it comes from education, actually.
So does that suggest that the French folks are coming now to start coming here, just opting out? Are they opting out of France and saying,
No, yeah, but I don't think so. I mean, actually, It depends on the people.
I'm not sure about the young people. Jonathan was obviously not opting out when he left France to come to the US. I've seen that among expatriates, people who are being sent here at the age of 35 or 40, and they do a 5-year contract in the US, and after a while, lots of them ask for the green card and try to stay in the US. It happens. France is not very attractive at the moment. If you're not a tourist, I'll be honest. If you're not a tourist, it's not very attractive. There are not many reasons to go there and start a life there.
But I think we have also, I mean, the reason why there's this situation in France is also because of the media. And actually, the day I left, I had a half page in the Nouvel Obs, which is like a newspaper in France, saying fiscal exit. And it was like Jonathan Benhamou is leaving France because he is about to sell his company and to make a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. It was half page, actually, of that. And the only reason why I left was to just develop my company and to create more jobs in France. And that's what we've done. I left, we were 30 in France. We are now 150 and 90 people in France. So just, I think the media are really like bad in France. La gauche. It's the same. I mean, for me, it's that.
Okay. Sorry, we have a question in the back.
I am Jean-François Serval. I am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. I publish in English, and you are right, Mr. Bello. It's difficult these days. It was not 1 century ago. It's difficult these days to be published when writing in French in the US. That's another story. But I don't think it has any link to the story of the US being more modern. There's nothing to do with that, because the Amazon and all these companies, they are worldwide companies, they are not US. And I totally concur to what our German friend said. I just went last week with Pierre Gattaz to visit our colleagues from Germany. And yes, it's both countries are product-oriented. Because of the size of the countries, they are looking not to make mass production, but to have high margins. And that makes have the best products in the world. And I can say that more or less, the big French companies, the Mittelstand companies, they are bigger in Germany than they are in France. Not because they are better in Germany than they are in France, it's just a question of size of a country. It's going to be balanced because the demography in Germany is very, very bad. Nevertheless, why did we go to Germany? It was to appraise the education system, because we have a system which has been very much influenced by the US one, and the German one is more efficient in terms of industry. That's the dual education, university, and factories at the same time, or during the same period. And we went to study in details everything which, and our model these days is not at all the US, it's Germany. Why? Because it has been slightly more efficient than the French one. Probably the political issues in Europe, especially in France, has influenced the way France is not doing as well as it should due to its crazy thing that why don't we tax capital as well as labor? That's really something very curious. Nevertheless, it doesn't exist. That's the reason why most US companies try to make reverse mergers, because the tax is lower in France than it is in the US.
Could we just...
The question is, I don't understand your comment about France, because you look at French market. I don't think, why don't you look at European market? 500 million people. And most companies are not looking at France at all. They look at France as where to start, or they start in Germany, and they go to the UK for other reasons, and they go to the US for other reasons. So I did not understand your point about the French market.
Right, so it's a European market as opposed to a French market.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think the answer is really easy actually on that one. As you can imagine, we thought about that when we thought about moving to the US. Europe is not a country, it's not a market. Europe is 27 markets, 27 languages, 27 marketing, 27 way to run a company, 27 regulation. We just start a company in Germany 4 months ago. It took us 3 months to have just like a GmbH, 3 months. We just started in the UK. It took us 5 months to open an account. We came to the US. It took us 1 week to open a company in every state. And this is a $300 million market with 1 language, 1 culture, and one product.
But
so basically, the cost of
Texas, clearly.
yeah, but actually that's different because you have to sell taxes and that's it. But the thing is that the cost of opportunity is, it's like better for the US than to open 27 countries. It costs the same actually to open UK or to open the US at the beginning. So basically, it's a no-brainer for us. But so that's the problem of Europe actually. And I think we could have a great market if actually we had 1 market. But people, it's just like we're struggling to have at least one European, at least one European economic government.
But I think that's one of your mistakes, because in our firm, we are preparing to be global. And for instance, today, German is becoming totally compulsory, and plus Mandarin in Asia.
But it depends on the industry you are in. Actually, I'm not sure this is a mistake. We're a SaaS business, software as a service business. If you want to be global, your valuation won't be higher because you're in Germany. It will be higher because you're in the US. So between hiring 5 people, like opening a German market, investing in the German market, or hiring 5 more people in the US, it's a no-brainer. We hire 5 more people in the US.
We don't hire German-speaking people for Germany, not at all. We do hire German-speaking people for selection of people, because they are, as you know, because you've been to school in France, they are the best selection. We're not interested in mass hiring. And the second reason is for Asia. Why? Because it's the presence of the industry. Most of the industry, as everywhere, they prefer to speak their own language. So we disregarded, for many reasons, the fact of speaking English was a plus. It's not a plus. Why? Because in Singapore they speak another language.
Can I just, if I may, expand on something you made earlier, the point you made earlier about education, and you introduced this initially. So, given all of these relatively profound cultural differences, can you guys comment on the education systems? Is that something that perpetuates the differences? Is it something that's bridged? How do you see the difference, particularly for the future?
When I came to the US, it was of course one of the things that amazed me the most is the difference between the education systems. I had 3 kids at the time. They all went to a public school in Westchester. And I remember going to the first day after back to school. There was a meeting at my son's school, and the principal started the meeting with, okay, let me remind you what the first goal of school is. And I was, okay, what is it? I'm gonna, hear something interesting. And she said, it is to develop the kids' self-esteem. And that's, that answer would have been number 25 on my list. I could think of 25 other answers to that question because I'm French and because I'm the product of a French education. And now that I've been here for a long time, I understand what she meant, and I'm starting to understand why it's not such a bad idea to have kids who don't hate themselves or not ashamed of not being, top of their class. And of course, because I'm French and because I have received this education, I'm trying to give something else to my kids, which is, working a bit more wouldn't be a bad idea, playing 3 different sports and hanging out with your friends all the time, that's great, but that's not how you're gonna get to Harvard. So I'm trying to mix and take the best of both worlds. But one thing that I realized, the French system is for the people who are at the top of their class, the French system, I think, is unparalleled. It's maybe the best or one of the best in the world. And I'm not saying that. Many different people are saying that. Employers, faculties. I remember in HSA, I had a teacher who was American. He was teaching international finance, and his previous assignment had been in Princeton, where he was teaching the grad school. And he was teaching us a bunch of 21, 22 years old, and he was amazed. He said, you don't work at all, because in HSA you don't work, that would be considered, it's frowned upon. So you don't work at all, and still you're better than 80% of my class in Princeton. And that's the result of, okay, we're in the best classes in Paris or in the best province high schools, and then went to the best prep schools, and then we were selected one of, out of 10 or 20. That's what you get. That's nice if you're in the top 2% or the top 3%. If you're below, it's much more difficult. And then you start to have all the other problems. You don't learn a trade. You don't learn things that you can actually use in companies. You're on a track that can be extremely slow. I mean, the average student in university wastes 2 years of their time, starting subjects like psychology or Spanish that they will drop after a year or 2 years. So then, you have plenty of other problems. One thing that I like here is that the kids are not overwhelmed with homework, and I've started to appreciate that, because now I realize, all these startups or big tech companies who were founded by Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs, these guys could do it during their high school years. I mean, not start the company in itself, but they had time to code. They had time to get into something really deep. My daughter, who is in a good school in France at the age of 16, she works all day. And when she has a bit of time, she will read a book, but she has no time to explore something else. And I think that restricts our creativity and deprives the country from very interesting options. We should tinker more.
Completely agree with